Once people understand the power of heart coherence, it's so easy to understand the potential of the global coherence pulse and of pulsing the planet with our heart coherent energy, which is the main event and why we're here. But first, I'll add some context to allow what Roland said to sink in. I know I saw some people on the chat were asking for a definition of heart coherence, and I will just say that I'll remind people that it is a state of optimal well-being and performance in the human system. Coherence in general, you can think of harmony, connectedness, dynamic stability, and when it's driven by the heart, you can think of love. So when I say coherence, you can actually think of love, because love is what creates the coherence naturally in the body. So we'd like to dedicate Global Coherence Day 2020 to a very young humanity in profound transition, and especially to the most marginalized among us, those most affected by a paradigm based on a belief in separation, and that's manifesting as crises in every domain of experience. The extent of our collective incoherence is so obviously on display right now. And our challenges are personal and structural, local and global, systemic, so-called super wicked problems, because there's no central external authority that seems to be able to solve them. And there is the opportunity in our crisis, because we know that crisis is an evolutionary driver, and we're being driven to cultivate our own inner authority, the authority of a coherent heart, and discover the power of humanity's collective heart to heal our world. We created the pulse because it's time. It's time to ask the question, what would love do? And let love answer. By embodying love ourselves, not just thoughts of love or hopes of love that may actually be riding on the frequencies of fear, but the kind of love that moves the world even when much of the world's not moving. The kind of love that remembers our connectedness. The kind of love that is like the difference between the power of a 40-watt bulb, which is spatially incoherent, and the power of laser light, which is spatially coherent light, precise enough for microsurgery and powerful enough to burn a hole through steel. We created the pulse because we recognize coherence as an untapped strategic resource that not only is unlimited, but that grows exponentially when used, and that can be deployed with strategic effectiveness. Since March, we've been building the foundation for these pulses based on the science of heart coherence that Roland just shared, and on the art of embodying coherence, going beyond the intellectual understanding to a commitment to cultivation, using HeartMath's core practice based on 3 decades of research, not as the only way, many paths, one destination, but as an offering of one of the simplest, most profound ways to drive coherence in the human system. And we're assisted by technology as mirrors of our own inner process and how it affects our outer world. So we've been building this foundation over the last several months because we believe that the most essential contribution we each can make to this massive global change moment that the entire planet is in right now is through the coherence of our own hearts. A few months ago, I was preparing for our May Pulse session and found an article in the MIT Tech Review newsletter. The title was, "The Real Bailout is Happening on GoFundMe," the crowdsourcing platform. And it said that in the absence of government leadership in the United States during the pandemic, GoFundMe was watching their platform turn into the country's default social safety net, as the only dependable option became people self-organizing to support each other. At the time of that writing, over $120 million had been raised to help people with rent, grocery, and doctor bills, and yesterday I even read with funeral bills. And it struck me that what we're doing here is crowdsourcing love as the only dependable option. that what we're doing here is the self-organized banking of heart coherent energy that's freely and non-locally, intelligently distributed within the collective field to uplift all life. And this is what Global Coherence Day is dedicated to, that upliftment. We're inspired by the Nobel Prize-winning physical chemist Ilya Prigogine, who was also known as the poet of thermodynamics, and who demonstrated that in complex systems that are far from equilibrium, as our world is now, small islands of coherence can shift the entire system to a higher order. This is one of our central themes, and we repeat it every pulse. And I also share that I think it's a scientific demonstration of what modern mystics like Thomas Hübl mean when they say that crisis and miracles are very close together. Because it's also true that the further a system is from equilibrium or stability, the worse the crisis is, the less energy it takes to create change. And maybe we even know that from our own lives, like the straw that breaks the camel's back. So the question we want to answer is, how much love will it take to realign humanity with nature's innate coherence? How much love will it take to move our world from our current state of emergency to one of emergence? Maybe not as much as we think, because when it comes to coherence, it's not quantity over quality. Research suggests that small groups of coherent individuals have more power to affect the global field environment than large groups of meditators that don't have coherence at the core. And coherence at the core is our commitment. The Pulse is an open citizen science initiative that represents a growing network of networks, backed by a new scientific collaboration that includes HeartMath's Global Coherence Initiative, the Global Consciousness Project, and the Institute of Noetic Sciences, or IONS, representing a growing global network of sensors and social metrics being monitored to correspond with our coherence pulses, coming together to support the creating of a critical mass of islands of coherence, to create a clear signal through all the noise, to create a tipping point where the love of power is eclipsed by the power of love, of gratitude, of joyful appreciation, and then not just make that shift, but turn up that power by turning the embodiment of coherence into a social function, something we do not just for our own bodies, but for our social and planetary bodies, because it is all one, making it intentional and collaborative. So global meditations aren't new, and thankfully there are many more happening in response to our world situation, and we exist to support them. And as Roland said, much of the heart science isn't new, or maybe he didn't say it this time, but he usually mentions that a lot of the heart science is over 100 years old. But what is relatively new is the understanding of what a powerful point of conscious intervention the heart is in creating whole system coherence. What is new is the understanding of how much agency we each have in creating coherence in the world. What is new is the collective commitment we're seeing to claiming our coherence by putting this agency into action for creating whole system health and well-being, or whole system coherence, whether it's through electromagnetic fields, quantum entanglement, in whatever ways it's happening, to help humanity recognize a higher version of ourselves, and to help science tell a new story of our profound interconnectedness, by contributing to the scientific evidence that suggests that imbuing the field with our love and compassion, not just the acts they inspire, but the felt perceptions themselves. By doing that, we're changing the world. So as we transition to our pulsing, please remember before we start that we're not trying to create an effect on any of the measurement technologies. That would actually be counterproductive and is a different experiment entirely. We're just claiming our coherence. We are relaxing into love and gratitude, and we do it for ourselves and for all of life. So please remember that contributing our coherence doesn't depend on any of the technologies, but with them, we can observe our personal and collective skill building And as citizen scientists, we can provide vital data for observing our impact. The founder of IONS, Apollo 14 astronaut and sixth man to walk on the moon, Edgar Mitchell, had an epiphany in space that showed him that what he called agape love, what's also called unconditional love, is the organizing principle of the entire universe. This is what we're using. And given that the sacred text, the Upanishads, is reported to regard the heart as the fulcrum of the entire cosmos, who knows how far our impact can go? Thank you for joining us today. I'll hand it back to you, Teresa.
Beautiful, Claudia. Your descriptions and the way in which you know what the pulse is for the planet is so palpable and so easy to understand and to really take in. And let's send a little pulse wave of love to Claudia for all that she's been doing on the planet for so many years to make heart-centered coherence be something that is being focused on and embodied. Thank you so much for all of your love and presence. Yeah.